The world is constructed of light and shadow, of verifiable facts and whispered possibilities. Sometimes, a voice of clarity, a mind devoted to truth, is extinguished in the deepest shadow of all, the shadow of the unsolved. We seek patterns. We crave conclusion. But the most unsettling stories are the ones that refuse to resolve, leaving behind only the ghost of a question.
Every mystery has a story, but not every story has an answer. Every week, we uncover the chilling cases that have haunted investigators for years. Unsolved disappearances, cold cases, and the darkest secrets waiting to be discovered. Are you ready to uncover the truth? Join us, if you dare. The Unsolved Chronicle.
This is the silence that swallowed Professor Pius Adesanmi. He was a man whose words cut through the noise, a scholar whose insight illuminated the most entrenched darkness in society. His life was an argument for accountability, his death, a sudden, brutal, and atmospheric contradiction. A riddle wrapped in fog. Imagine the moment the communication stops. Not a dramatic collapse, but a gradual, terrifying deceleration into quiet. The emails unanswered. The planned lecture slot, suddenly empty. The distinctive, resonant laughter that usually filled the room, replaced by the low, insistent hum of an investigative machine struggling to find purchase in slick, shifting terrain. What happens when the greatest critic of systemic flaws becomes the centerpiece of the most complex flaw of all, a mystery where the rules of logic fail? We don't know who did this. We don't know precisely why. We only know the location, the date, and the terrible, echoing void left by the absence of Professor Pius Adesanmi. And sometimes, in the coldest case files, the silence speaks louder than any confession. To understand the depth of the void, one must first appreciate the brilliance of the life. Pius Adesanmi was a pillar of the international academic community, a professor of literature and comparative studies, a leading public intellectual, and a powerful voice on contemporary African politics and global citizenship. He was known for his elegant prose, his uncompromising ethical framework, and his relentless pursuit of truth, often using satire and scholarship as twin scalpels to dissect corruption and complacency. To his colleagues and students at Carleton University and around the world, he was not just a scholar, he was a moral compass. In the late spring, Professor Adesanmi embarked on what was described as a critical research trip. The itinerary was densely packed, involving lectures, archival work, and meetings with influential figures across several continents. His last confirmed location was the sprawling, historically layered capital city, known for its mix of powerful governmental bodies and discreet, shadowed back channels. He was scheduled to attend a major global symposium, focusing on the role of the intellectual in a rapidly changing political landscape. May 7, Professor Adesanmi delivers a stirring keynote address, widely reported for its pointed critique of powerful interests. Witnesses note his usual infectious energy. May 8, he spends the day in the National Archives, confirming details for a highly anticipated manuscript. He is seen leaving the building alone just before closing. He speaks briefly with his family via video call that evening, reporting a successful, if exhausting, day. May 9, this is the first crack in the facade. Professor Adesanmi misses a scheduled panel discussion he was moderator for. Initial alarm is muted, travel delays or minor illness are assumed. However, attempts by conference organizers to contact him go unanswered. May 10, growing concern prompts official intervention. Local police, alongside liaisons from his home institution, enter the leased, short-term apartment he was occupying on the outskirts of the Central District. The discovery was immediate and devastating. The scene, described in official documents as unsettlingly orderly, offered few immediate clues. No forced entry. No sign of struggle that suggested an impulsive or desperate crime. Instead, investigators were confronted with a meticulous absence of information. His research notes were neatly stacked, his laptop was found wiped clean, or perhaps never accessed during the final hours. The only significant missing items were his personal mobile phone and the hard copy draft of the manuscript he had been working on. The public reaction was immediate and intense. The loss of a figure of his stature generated global headlines. Media outlets struggled to reconcile the image of the brilliant, uncompromising scholar with the reality of an unfolding, baffling tragedy in a quiet residential unit. The initial official statement was cautious, confirming only that Professor Adesanmi had died under highly suspicious and complex circumstances, and that a massive international task force was being assembled. Key investigators and roadblocks. The investigation was hampered from the start by bureaucratic hurdles and jurisdictional friction. The local authorities, keen to maintain the city's reputation for safety, initially favored a theory of opportunistic crime. However, the international task force, comprised of Canadian, Nigerian, and Interpol agents, quickly pushed back, citing the specific intellectual nature of the missing items and the lack of a clear financial motive. Key to the investigation was the missing manuscript. Sources familiar with the professor's work indicated the draft was highly sensitive, potentially exposing major figures in the fields of resource management and political finance. Without this document, the clearest link to motive vanished. Witness interviews proved contradictory. A local vendor near the apartment claimed to have seen a dark, unfamiliar sedan parked near the building late on the night of May 8. The description of the driver was vague, a professional type, wearing a cap. Conversely, the building superintendent stated that nothing unusual had been noticed, only the quiet coming and going typical of a short-term rental building. In the months that followed, dozens of leads went cold. The sedan was never traced. Phone records were inconclusive, showing only the last contact with his family and a final, brief, encrypted call to an unknown number that lasted only seconds, hours before his disappearance. Official reports shifted from opportunistic crime to a targeted, professional act. The trail, however, remained frustratingly obscured. The facts were simple: Professor Pius Adesanmi was gone. The narrative surrounding his final hours was anything but. Theories and oddity. The meticulous nature of the crime and the stature of the victim ensured that the case of Professor Pius Adesanmi became a proving ground for several competing theories. Investigators and independent analysts alike struggled to find a scenario that explained both the professionalism of the act and the specific, highly symbolic missing evidence. Theory 1: The political silence. This theory posits that the death was a direct, retaliatory action orchestrated by one of the powerful political or corporate entities that Professor Adesanmi had tirelessly scrutinized through his scholarship and public critique. Origin and evidence. Adesanmi's latest work was known to be intensely critical of state-sponsored corruption and illicit resource exploitation in certain regions. Investigators quickly learned that the professor had received veiled threats and cautionary warnings regarding his upcoming manuscript. The crime scene supported this theory. The precision, the lack of struggle, and the critical missing manuscript all suggest a motive focused on silencing his research, not simple robbery. Contradictions and oddities. If this was a high-level, politically motivated hit designed for maximum deterrence, why choose a relatively discreet location? Why not make the scene more publicly sensational? One strange detail involves a single, high-quality, blank, laminated calling card found wedged beneath a stack of books. It bore no printing, only a distinctive, faint watermark that investigators could never definitively trace, suggesting a cryptic message or a professional signature meant to be found by specific eyes. Speculation. Some investigators believe the blank card suggests the perpetrator wanted the investigative team to understand the political origins of the crime without leaving digital or textual evidence that could be traced back to a specific entity. The goal wasn't just to stop the manuscript from being published, but to send a chilling, subtle message to others in his intellectual orbit. Theory 2: The academic rivalry and sealed research. This theory moves the focus away from global politics and into the intensely competitive, often volatile, world of academic elite and intellectual property. It suggests the motive stemmed from a specific, professional envy or the suppression of highly controversial research that could ruin a peer's reputation or career. Origin and evidence. Professor Adesanmi was known to be working closely with several major universities and think tanks. One line of inquiry focused on a bitter, ongoing public debate he was engaged in concerning the fundamental origins of certain historical African texts. His final manuscript, according to several confidential sources, was set to unequivocally debunk the life's work of a highly established, respected figure in the same field. The key piece of supporting evidence for this theory involves a peculiar exchange of emails discovered on a secondary, seldom used account belonging to the professor. These emails, dating back months, show increasingly aggressive correspondence with a peer concerning access to specific archival materials, culminating in a threat stating that some truths are better left buried. Contradictions and oddities. While the professional motive is strong, the means of execution seems unnecessarily extreme for an academic dispute. Why risk international exposure? The oddity here is the discovery of a small, valuable antique fountain pen left on the professor's desk. It was identified by the task force as a unique, limited edition item, a gift given only to the recipients of a prestigious, international academic prize awarded annually. Investigators spent months trying to determine if the pen belonged to Adesanmi or, more chillingly, if it was left behind by someone who was also a recipient of that very same award. Speculation. This theory speculates that the killer was a peer whose reputation, funding, or legacy was directly threatened by the professor's final research. The murder was a preventative measure, carried out by someone intimately familiar with the academic environment, who used the political noise surrounding Adesanmi's other work as a perfect cover. Theory 3, the out-of-town killer and mistaken identity. This theory rejects the high-stakes political or professional motives and suggests a crime of unfortunate circumstance, either an opportunistic action that escalated violently or a sophisticated mistake where Professor Adesanmi was targeted but intended to be someone else. Origin and evidence. This scenario gained traction when investigators discovered that a neighboring apartment in a short-term rental complex was routinely used by a prominent, though reclusive, business consultant with known ties to organized crime networks. This consultant had checked out only hours before Adesanmi was discovered. The theory suggests the killer may have been dispatched to silence the consultant, only to confuse the unit numbers or encounter the professor, who was then murdered to conceal the blunder. The primary evidence supporting this is a key card from a different building, found discarded in a nearby public trash receptacle. Forensic analysis confirmed Adesanmi's fingerprints were not on the card, suggesting it was used or dropped by a visitor who had access to another sensitive location. Contradictions and oddities. If it was mistaken identity, why take the manuscript? If the killer realized they had targeted the wrong man, the critical document would hold no value to them. This contradiction is the theory's greatest weakness. The oddity noted in the case files, however, is a persistent one, a distinct scent of ozone and burnt sugar reported by the first officers on the scene, a smell typically associated with old electrical machinery or specific industrial chemicals, suggesting a possible link to manufacturing or large-scale shipping, sectors often frequented by the neighboring consultant. Speculation. The most chilling interpretation here is that the killer was an outsider, only temporarily in the city, the out-of-town killer. They were dispatched with specific instructions, possibly related to eliminating a problematic resident, the consultant, and when the professor was encountered, the killer defaulted to their professional protocol, eliminating the witness and taking the most valuable seeming object, the manuscript, as proof of the job's completion, regardless of the victim's identity. Case status plus call to action. Decades have passed since the loss of Professor Pius Adesanmi, yet the investigation remains stubbornly open. The Joint International Task Force officially lists the case as active, though the file has long since moved into the realm of the coldest of cold cases. In recent years, the digital revolution has offered a glimmer of hope. Investigators have returned to the original physical evidence, hoping to use advanced forensic techniques to analyze trace DNA on the mysterious blank calling card or to reconstruct the fragmented data from the secondary email account. To date, however, these efforts have not yielded the critical breakthrough needed to identify the perpetrator. Professor Adesanmi's death stands as a testament to the fact that even the most brilliant minds can be erased, and the greatest truths can be deliberately buried. What detail lingers in your mind? Was this the work of a powerful enemy determined to enforce silence, or a tragic intersection with professional malice? Which theory feels closest to the truth, or do you have another possibility that better explains the conflicting evidence? Share your respectful thoughts below. Sometimes, the coldest cases thaw with fresh eyes and a renewed determination to see justice done. The silence must not be permanent. In memory of Professor Pius Adesanmi, not a headline, but a life. Not a mystery to solve, but a person to remember.